The following program presents principles designed to promote good health and is not intended to take the place of personalized professional care. The opinions and ideas expressed are those of the speaker. Viewers are encouraged to draw their own conclusions about the information presented.
Welcome to Wonderfully Made, our continuing series on today's most common diseases. We are daily reminded of cholesterol, either from ads on television or newspapers or magazines. Even the Reader's Digest would have us look at a better lifestyle. Our segment this time is about controlling cholesterol. I'm your host, Marcel Wiggers, and our lifestyle physician today is Dr. Milton Teske. Well, Dr. Teske, I hear so many things about cholesterol. There's good cholesterol, there's bad cholesterol. Can you help us sort that out today?
That's what we're going to do. Before this program's over, you're going to understand cholesterol. Cholesterol, of course, we all know that cholesterol is bad for us. But what does cholesterol do? Well, we know that if your cholesterol level is high, you are developing a disease called atherosclerosis in your arteries. And what is this disease? It's where the artery wall becomes thicker and thicker and thicker till eventually the artery becomes plugged off. And when it's one of the arteries in your heart, you have a heart attack. If it's an artery in your brain, you have a stroke. More people die from that than any other cause. 50% of the people living in the United States today will die from this disease. In terms of disaster, the September 11 disaster, if that was repeated every 3 days, do you think it would get somebody's attention? That is the death toll from this disease. It's like repeating that disaster every 3 days, year after year after year. That's the death toll we're talking about. And we know that if your cholesterol level is elevated, that you are getting this disease. It is now insidiously developing in your arteries if your cholesterol is elevated. So it's a very serious thing we're talking about here. And before this program's over, we're going to give you the key to put it under control, simply, naturally, God's way. Now, to do that, we're going to need to come here and understand a little bit about the body's digestive system. So, of course, that's where cholesterol comes from. So let's take a look and review the anatomy that you're probably familiar with. And we're going to start right up here with the mouth. We all know that's important. From the mouth, where does our food go? Yeah, it goes down our food pipe. We call it the esophagus. And coming down the esophagus, it comes to the stomach. So we're going to put a nice big stomach in here. And now after it comes out of the stomach, where does it go? Well, from the stomach, we go to the small intestines. We're going to draw these in here. Now, of course, they're a lot longer than this. This is all very diagrammatic here. But we go through the small intestines. And after the food passes through the small intestines, it goes to the large intestine, sometimes referred to as the colon. Now, we're going to draw that over here. Obviously, this is not the anatomical position in the body, but this is a more functional diagram. So we're going to draw the colon, or large intestine, over here. And of course, after passing through the colon, it passes through the rectum and on out of the body. So there we have the path of food through our digestive tract. But this isn't all that's involved there. There's some other very important parts of our digestive system, a couple of very important glands. And we're going to draw those in here. First one we draw here is the liver. Largest gland in your body, all kinds of complex chemical functions there. But one of the things that the liver does is it makes bile. You know what bile is? Now, bile comes out here in the bile duct, and it comes down And it's very important for the digestion of fat. You see, fat doesn't mix with water, right? Have you ever taken water and oil in a jar and you shake them up and what happens? Well, they don't mix, right? Even if you try to mix them, they quickly separate. Water and oil don't mix. Now, everything in our body is a water-based system, right? I mean, your blood is water-based, all your digestive juices dissolve in water, water flows through all your tissues, everything in your body is a water-based system, so oil isn't going to move through it very easily, right? And so you have to mix them together. We call it an emulsifier, sort of like soap. When you get really greasy dishes after a meal and you run the water and the faucet over them, the grease doesn't come off, does it? But if you put some dish soap on there, what happens? Then the grease easily dissolves into the water and goes out. So bile is sort of like soap, so that when we take in foods that have oil in them, and by the way, there are certain essential fatty foods that are important in a diet. We're not talking about a fat-free diet here. But to digest anything that's got fat, we need bile to mix it up so the digestive juices can come. And we have a special little sac to store the bile for each meal. We call it the gallbladder. So we're going to draw in our gallbladder here for us. It's a little sac here on the side. And then from that sac, the bile comes on down. It goes behind the intestines there, and it comes out to a little opening here in the small intestines. And it's at this point that the bile can be released and come out in and mix with the food in the intestines and actually emulsify them, mix them with water so that they can be properly digested and then absorbed into the body. And of course, at this point, we also have the pancreas. And we'll just draw it laying down in here. The pancreas also makes digestive juices that are important in digestion. And it has a little duct that connects up here and also dumps its digestive juices in at the same place there. So there we have for us the digestive system. Now, cholesterol. We're going to give you 3 special keys to understanding and controlling this cholesterol. But before we do that, you need to understand that your body actually needs cholesterol. Every single human being needs cholesterol. And you use it in your body. By the way, do you know the most common place you use it? Right here in making bile. Bile is made out of cholesterol. The major normal use of cholesterol in your body is to make bile and the various bile salts. This is the highest place you'll find it. But the other important places in your body that you need it are certain hormones. Your different hormones that control your salt levels in the body, they're all made out of cholesterol. Vitamin D that is made in your skin with sunlight, that's made out of cholesterol. All of these sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, they're all made out of cholesterol. So you see, we don't want a cholesterol-free body. We actually need cholesterol. But the good news is that God knew you needed cholesterol, and so He designed your body to make all the cholesterol you need. So your body actually has the ability to make cholesterol. Do you know where it makes it? Right here in the liver. And if you think about it, it makes sense, because where do you use most of your cholesterol? Yeah, right here. And so it makes most of it here. Most of it goes into the bile and is dumped out into the intestines and the bile salts. But as they run through the body right here, through the intestines, when they get down to the end of the small intestine, they've done their job. Here is a very unique structure. We call it the recycling center. You know, you absorb different things at different places. Well, this little area right here, the very last part, is your recycling center. And so is all of the cholesterol in your food that you ate, or cholesterol from the bile that you've secreted here. As it's coming past the very last part of the small intestine before it goes to the colon, here we actually start absorbing it. And it goes back into the bloodstream. And we can reabsorb and actually recycle almost all the cholesterol in the body. Everything is very efficient. It works really nice. And so here you have the total picture of what's going on. Now, we told you that your body made all of the cholesterol you needed. I want you to think about that for a minute. If your body makes all the cholesterol it needs, do you realize that a cow makes all of the cholesterol that it needs? And the pigs make all the cholesterol they need? And the chickens make all the cholesterol they need? And if you think about it, you can start to see the problem. If your body has already made all the cholesterol you need, and now you eat the cow, now you've got your cholesterol plus his cholesterol. And then if you eat the chicken, you can add that to it, and then the eggs, and you keep on going as you eat not only yours, but everybody else's. Do you see how we get way too much cholesterol in the body? Well, that is our number one key. We're going to put that right up here. Number one. Number one is don't eat everybody else's cholesterol. How do we do that? We don't eat animal products. Animal products are all full of cholesterol. The meat, the chicken, the fish, the dairy products, the eggs, the milk, all of these things are full of cholesterol. If you want a cholesterol-free diet, what do you eat? You eat plants. Did you know plants don't need cholesterol? There's no cholesterol in any type of plant that you have, no matter what kind it is. Even some people talk about, what about avocados and coconut? No, they have certain fats, certain essential fatty acids that are actually good for you, but they don't have cholesterol. A vegetarian diet is a cholesterol-free diet. So rule number one is what? Don't eat everybody else's cholesterol. That's the number one key. Okay. Now we're going to follow that down. Number two, remember that we use cholesterol to make the bile salts, and the purpose of those bile salts is digesting fat. Well, let's suppose that instead of an ordinary meal, we have a typical high-fat meal. There's a lot of oil been added to it in the forms of salad dressings and butters. We've fried foods, and we get a meal that's actually very high in free fats. Everything is kind of a little greasy and oily there. When we put this kind of a meal into the stomach right here, now we've got all of the fat here in the stomach, the body realizes, wow, look at all that fat. Do you see what's going to happen here? The body says, we are going to need a lot of bile to digest this, aren't we? And so what does it do? Well, there's actually a message that's sent through the nervous system from the stomach up here to the liver. And you know what that message says to the liver? That message says, make more cholesterol. Yeah, it says, make more cholesterol. Now, if you think about that for a minute, what we're talking about here, a high-fat meal goes to the liver, and it stimulates it to make more cholesterol. Now, how does it do that? Well, actually, here in the liver, there is little factories that are building cholesterol. They take various other molecules, they put them together, and they build cholesterol. Well, what we are doing here now is telling the liver, build a lot more cholesterol factories because we got a huge amount of fat coming through that's got to be digested. And so the liver starts building cholesterol factories, and we really boost cholesterol output. And so now there's a huge amount of cholesterol being made here to be put into the digestive tract, recirculated, and also released into the bloodstream. And so now we have an individual here, even if we control number one, where we don't eat anybody else's, we're on a purely plant-based diet. What if we are adding to this vegetarian diet lots of vegetable oil, and we've got corn oil and canola oil and every other kind of oil you can think of, and you're putting it on the food, even good old olive oil. As we're putting a lot of oil on here, what's happening? What's the message to the liver? Make more cholesterol. What's the liver doing? It has turned on the cholesterol factories, and now it is putting out, and you can have a seriously high cholesterol level and develop this atherosclerotic disease in your body just simply because you're on a high-fat diet. Even if it's totally vegetarian, even if it's 100% cholesterol-free diet, you can still turn it on with a high-fat diet. So that is our rule number two. So let's just put a number two down here to remind us of that. Rule number two, don't turn on the cholesterol factories with a high-fat diet. Now, rule number three has to do with this concept of the recycling center down here. Remember that all the cholesterol we eat, plus most of the cholesterol from the liver, which is going into the bile is coming through here, and when it gets to the very last part of the small intestine, what's happening to it? It's being reabsorbed into the bloodstream, right? Yeah. And as it's reabsorbed here into the bloodstream, what happens to our blood cholesterol level? Yeah, it just goes up, 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 up. Well, on the whole plant food diet, which we have been recommending, that's the Eden diet, the Creator's diet, the food that comes the way God made it. When you take the fruits and the vegetables the way they come from the garden, with all of the fiber and vitamins and minerals in them, every single thing we eat has fiber in it. Every plant is full of fiber. By the way, is there any fiber in meat? No. There is no fiber in meat or chicken, or even if it's tough and fibery, that's elastic tissue, which is all protein. There is no fiber in any animal product, but every single plant product has fiber in it. You don't have to be adding the bran and all of the extra fibers, but every single plant food has its fiber right there in it. Now, what is fiber? Well, fiber is actually a part of the plant that you can't digest. And at first, scientists thought, well, this is just, you know, some evolutionary problem, something left over. It's a kind of a worthless, non-needed thing. But we now realize that fiber is actually very essential to good health. It was part of the way God designed the body to run. And so as we have a meal that's full of fiber here, as we eat it, it gets digested here in the stomach, the acids in the digestive system. This fiber, as it passes on here, starts to become a huge spongy mass here. Yeah, it can't be absorbed. It's just like a sponge. It just, all of this fiber as it's passing through the intestines here. And all of the various nutrients, the carbohydrates, the proteins, the fatty acids, the vitamins, the minerals, are all kind of soaked up into this sponge of material that makes up our meal here as it's passing through. And the intestine keeps squishing and pushing and pushing it along, moving this mass of material through the intestines. And now there's lots of really good things that fiber does for you that we won't even have time to touch on in this lecture. But the one thing that it does that's really important in understanding our cholesterol picture right here has to do with controlling cholesterol reabsorption. Now just think about this for a minute. You've got this big spongy mass. Now remember, all the cholesterol's kind of soaked up in there. What about all the cholesterol from here, from the gallbladder with that meal? Yeah, all the cholesterol from the bile is soaked up into there. And so it's like a sponge, and it's all soaked up in that sponge. Well, now what happens when that sponge is coming through this part of the intestine right here? Yeah, as it's going through there, where's all the cholesterol? Where is it? Well, it's soaked up inside of the sponge, right? Now, as the cholesterol is soaked up inside of that sponge, how much of it is actually touching the surface of the intestine at any one moment? Only a very small amount of it, right? Yeah, only a very small amount of it is actually touching the surface, and only a very small amount of it then is actually going to be reabsorbed at that point. You see? Most of it is soaked up in the middle of the sponge. And where does that go? Well, it passes right on into the colon, and right on through the colon, and right on out of the body. Do you see what we've done here? We've taken all of that cholesterol that was made and put in the bile, the cholesterol, it's all soaked up in this sponge, and now we're taking this cholesterol-soaked sponge of fiber, moves right on through the colon and right out of the body. Do you see what we've got here? You have right now the only way known to remove cholesterol from your body. Isn't that fascinating? Yeah, that's it right there. That's how you move cholesterol out of the body. So we're going to put the number 3 down here. And there we have number 3. Soak up your cholesterol in a fiber sponge and take it out of the body. And so we're here, we have 1, 2, and 3. These are the keys for controlling your body's cholesterol level. Now, this cholesterol in the body, where is it going to? We were concerned about it. Of course, the bad thing it does is it gets in the artery walls, right? So let's just take a minute to look at that and see what's happening here. We're going to draw the cross-section of an artery here. Now it's got a nice muscle layer around it, and it's got a nice smooth endothelial layer right here lining the inside, making it nice and smooth. And of course the blood is flowing right through the middle of this artery here. And it's got a nice flexible, it can kind of flex with each pulse of blood going through, and everything is running just fine. Well now, when this cholesterol is absorbed into the body, how does it get from here to the rest of your body? Well, remember, cholesterol is a fat, it doesn't mix in blood, and so you can't actually dissolve it in there, and so we actually have to make little trucks to haul it around. And so what we actually make is, the body actually makes little trucks here that haul the fat. Have you ever had a lipid profile and they talk to you about your LDLs, your VLDLs, your HDLs? Do you ever wonder what those are? Those are actually little trucks that haul fat. And so we're going to draw one here. Good old LDL. And that's what it is. It's trucking fat. It's hauling all of this fat and cholesterol from your digestive system through the body right here. What about the VLDL? Remember the VLDLs? Well, the VLDLs, they're the very low density biproducts. They're great big trucks on the same little road hauling fat. The VLDLs. So LDL and VLDL are just two forms of trucking fat to the arteries. And what happens when they get to the artery wall here? Well, they start to deposit their fat here in the artery wall. And of course that fat is often oxidized, damaged fat. The macrophages come in and start attacking it, saying we don't want all this fat here in the artery wall. And there's actually a war going on right here in the artery wall, and your immune system is fighting this damaged, oxidized fat full of free radicals and all kinds of problems here. And as that fat comes into here, what's happening? Well, those macrophages, sometimes they just get swollen up, overwhelmed, loaded up. They become, under the microscope you can see them, we call them giant foam cells. And they actually die, they become battlefield casualties. They died trying to save you from all this bad fat you put in your meal. They become battlefield debris. And this battlefield debris starts to build up here. And that's actually what atherosclerosis is. It's the beginning to build up of that debris in the artery walls. But day after day, we keep eating the same greasy food. The same fat and oil is put into our digestive systems, and the body's trucking it there, trucking it to the arteries. And what happens is this effect starts building up in the artery walls. And soon we have not just a little bit, but we've got a lot in there. And the opening for the blood to flow through is smaller, and the artery wall is getting stiffer and harder and not working as well. And eventually it gets smaller and smaller and smaller till there's only a very small part left which can easily clot off. And of course, if that was one of the arteries in your heart, now you've got a heart attack. And if that was one of the arteries in your brain, now you just had a stroke. And you join those statistics of Americans that die from this disease. But there's another one. Some people call it your good cholesterol. Remember HDL? What's HDL? Well, if we come in this picture right here and we stop eating all of this bad fat, we come back to the diet the Creator gave us, the whole plant food diet, and the only fat in our diet comes from eating some almonds and avocados and the other foods the way God made them. Then when we stop trucking all of this bad fat, and the battle calms down, it settles down, and the macrophages aren't out there attacking and losing the battle every day. Instead, some macrophages come in and they start cleaning up. And when they clean up some battlefield debris, all of this cholesterol that's been deposited in the artery, you know what they do with it? They load it up in little trucks. Yeah, you know what they're called? HDL, our good friend HDL. So here is the HDL truck. And what's it doing? It's taking the fat out of the liver, the cholesterol out of there, and where does it take it? Yeah, it takes it right back to the liver. The HDL is hauling fat from the artery walls to the liver. Isn't that fantastic? Now, as that's going on, think about what's happening here. As we switch over to the diet that God designed, instead of trucking the bad fat out to the artery walls, what we are doing is actually taking it out of the artery wall. It's calming down, it's cooling off, and we're winning the battle. They're cleaning up the cholesterol molecule by molecule and loading it in little HDL trucks. And then what are those HDL trucks doing? Yeah, they're going right back to the liver. Now, what does the liver do with all that cholesterol? You remember, we just talked about it. What does the liver do? The main thing it does with cholesterol is what? Yeah, it makes the bile. And what does the bile go? It goes out in the digestive tract with each meal to help emulsify the fat. But remember, we're on a whole plant food diet now, right? And so what's here in our intestinal tract at this time? Fiber. A big load of fiber. And so where does the cholesterol go? It gets soaked up in that fiber sponge, right? And so what's the fiber sponge doing? The fiber sponge is just moving on right through and moving right out of the body. Now, when you think about that, do you realize what we've just done? We have taken cholesterol from your artery walls to the liver, to the fiber sponge, and out of your body. We have just taken cholesterol from your arteries and flushed it down the toilet. I mean, you want to get cholesterol out of your arteries, you want to reverse this disease process. Instead of going on to a heart attack, you want to open up those arteries. Right here, you've got the key. The simple whole plant food diet that the Creator gave us. That's the answer. That's the key. Now let's go back and review what we've talked about so far. If you want to control cholesterol, we've got 3 points here, right? Remember, what was number 1? That's right. Don't eat everyone else's cholesterol. What's number 2? Don't turn on the fat factories. That's right. Do not turn on the fat factories. And number 3 is soak it up in a high fiber sponge. Get it out of the body. That is the key to turning this around. And once you've done that, this whole plant food diet is going to allow you to truck the fat out of your body. This is the way that God designed you to live. We come back to those same 2 sentences, whole plant foods eaten whole, walk, 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 and you can truly live a diet, a lifestyle that is free of this disease that is killing more people than anyone else. It's a disease that will leave you devastated, but you can be free from it with this simple way here for controlling your cholesterol with a whole plant food diet, God's way.